For our next guest, we have Oded Orgil. He's the founder and president of 5X Capital Management and is also currently the chief executive officer of Ocean Falls Blockchain Corporation, a company focused on creating the future of technology. Mr. Oded Orgil, welcome to Titans Up Today. Excellent. So I'm excited to get into this. And I want to give everybody a background on who you are and your story. And the first question here is really, how did the various elements of your life experience and history culminate in your creation of OFBC, Ocean Falls Blockchain Corporation?
I think there's a very long answer to that, but I'll try to keep it short for you. I think in my background, I've always had a passion. I've had an entrepreneurial spirit, which is something that's resonated in my professional career. And it's transformed as well into the interest in helping build organizations. And when the opportunity came along to work with my co-founder, Kevin Day, who brought me into this, it was an opportunity to embrace the last part of everything, which is like a passion for learning. I think I've tried to exhibit that in my life as I've taken various stages in my professional career. So it was founding Ocean Falls was so interesting. It was the opportunity to build an organization. And again, the other factor was Kevin is a brilliant guy, but he really is wanting to be in the background, and he pushed me forward to take the lead and step out there because, as you'll find out today, Jacob, I'm not afraid to talk to people.
Excellent. And we're very grateful for that. So what is your primary mission in focusing on the future of technology?
I think for me personally, I think what I love about this is that embracing change. When I look at what's transformed just in my life in the last 25 years, from dialing up on the internet to then you get onto a website. And I often joke with people that 7 years ago, I would not do any online shopping. And now you can't get me into a mall. There's an Amazon package being delivered. So I see, and that's just one aspect of technology. So I've tried to, in the last few years, as I've gotten older, really embrace, the change and how technology is such an important part of our life. And what we hope to do, and what I'd like to see, is that it can be a positive influence in life, in all our lives. Again, there's good, bad, and ugly. But I think when you embrace the change of technology and look at it, you can really take advantage of all the great things that it can bring to all our lives.
And what did really influence that change to the point where you were more adopting and accepting of the change? Because a lot of time it's the opposite. As people get older, they're less likely to change. So were there experiences, perhaps COVID, obviously, especially with the shopping one, changed a lot and really brought a dramatic shift in the way of behavior? But were there other things that you were exposed to or that you learned that made you realize that was important?
I think absolutely. What we were briefly talking about offline, I think children. And when I look at if I want to stay relevant in their lives, whether it's social media, whether it's using Oculus goggles, and again, being exposed to children and how that has come in, I think that's been a major influence in the fact that, hey, you better wake up and enjoy the ride and not try to fight it.
That's great. And maybe we'll have to do some VR interviews for our future guests.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Now, what about, to go back into your backstory there and your journey in the financial industry? What was it that inspired you, let's say back as you're fresh out of school, that said, hey, or in school, wanted to get into the financial industry, and how that evolved into where you are now?
Again, I've taken a number of different, or again, my path, I've had a number of different careers in my life. As a young person, I wanted to be a lawyer, and that's really what I moved towards. And I was very fortunate. I graduated law school. I went through, here in Canada, we have an articling process, and then passed the bar and practiced law for a couple of years. I think I soon recognized that I wasn't going to be a brilliant lawyer, but I did love the fact of what I learned from law, and really was the ability to look at things from all different angles, whether you're arguing as a defense lawyer or a crown or a plaintiff or a defendant. So that was something that I really enjoyed, but recognizing that, again, I wasn't going to be a brilliant lawyer. I love business as well. And I had a bit of an entrepreneurial spirit. And I had the opportunity to step into the financial services sector initially as an advisor. And through that, I was able to use my entrepreneurial spirits, work with clients, high net worth people, some foundations, institutions, helping them build wealth. And I got a real grasp of what was going on in the financial services industry. Love that whole process. I often joke my undiagnosed ADHD kicked in after about 10 years. And I said, look, I've done it as a financial advisor. I now want to move into management. I want to be part of helping not just help my clients grow their wealth, but help a company do that same sort of thing. And so I was fortunate. I spent time with international companies such as Merrill Lynch or CIBC Canada, HSBC, and some great national firms, working my way up into management. And finally, I did spend some time as CEO of a wonderful boutique investment bank in Toronto, Canada. And then about, I guess it was 5 or 6 years ago, the opportunity presented itself to step away from that and start looking again, it was something like Ocean Falls, to step in and really take something from the ground up. And again, I've been immersed in it for 5 years, along with doing some other things in the financial services sector.
And one of those being 5X Capital Management. That's different from okay, perfect. So tell us a little bit more about that in particular and the name, where it originates from.
Sure. Yeah. So 5X Capital Management was when I left my last job on Bay Street, which is our version of Wall Street. I set up again, effectively a corporate advisory firm and leveraging off the network of people that I knew. 5X, the name came from, I have 5 children, so 5X Capital. I thought that would be appropriate at the time. And again, my number when I played hockey way back was number 5. So this seemed to come together. But 5X Capital over the last 5 years has done a number of corporate advisory work along those lines. My background, I was born in Israel, so I have a passion. And again, there's opportunities we're seeing a lot with Israeli companies. I've networked and helped some Israeli companies come to Canada and go public. So I spend today probably, as I joke, only 60 hours a week on Ocean Falls, and then a part-time job on the side is working through that. And 5X now, I sit on a couple of public boards and again, provide corporate advisory work to unique and interesting companies.
Awesome. Now, what are the core principles and values that you have carried and have been part of the drivers of your success?
It's without sounding too cliche, and I think sometimes we all do that, but for me, again, I've tried to live my life with 4 or 5 key aspects: integrity, trying to know what's right and what's wrong, trying to always be able to, as someone said, you want to be able to shave with the guy in the mirror and you want to be able to look at them in the eye. Respect, I think that's so important in this day and age. Everybody deserves the right to be treated fairly and equally. Maybe not always equally, but fairly, because there are people that should be rewarded, but respect for everybody. I've tried to be a person who takes on responsibility. I'm not afraid of that. And that goes on. And again, good sportsmanship. My parents said as a youngster, I was a real bad sport. I hate to lose. But again, sportsmanship, I think, is bringing your best to all the competitions, being out there. And then finally, as I've grown older, I'd like to be considered, hopefully, a good leader or leadership. But that leadership should serve the common good. Someone once referred to this, I think it was called servant leadership. And if I look at those things, and I think most people who are successful in life will look at those and use those core values and principles and drive them forward.
Now, as you go throughout your life, how do you make sure to refer back to those at key points? Do they just come up in your mind that, hey, this is an opportunity to exercise leadership, or have you internalized it so much that it's natural? And if that's the case, how would you get to that point if you were somebody who was listening?
I'd like to think that I've internalized it, but I maybe to a certain degree. But it's very much something that you do have to, I think, remind yourself. And again, with all the troubles that go on in the world today, again, it's really, as I've gotten older, and I joke, the stone maybe stays strong, but the edges aren't quite as sharp on it. And really, I just try to sit back and once in a while and appreciate what I have. I've been blessed, again, lovely wife, children, my health, and again, I'd like to think I internalize it, but every now and then I got to bang myself in the head and say, hey, remember how lucky you really are.
Gratitude, the 6th or what have you principle.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very strong. Now, what changes or stages of growth have you made or stages of growth have you gone through that are most memorable to who you are now and influential to who you are now?
I think this goes back to your previous question. For me, is I have tried to slow down and stay in the moment more and really appreciate what it is. I think someone say the days fly by, days are slow, but years fly by. And again, in the last little bit, I've seen that. So I'm really trying is to enjoy the day, enjoy the moment. There's stress in all our lives. But again, as I mentioned, is trying to enjoy the little things, whether it's with my spouse, my friends, or my children. So focus on the present is something, as I've gotten older, and we all get older, you realize you're not here forever, you're not immortal, and it's so important to just enjoy the day.
Fantastic. Now, to get into your business, OFBC, Ocean Falls Blockchain Corp, what makes it a great value? And in your mind, obviously someone who has operated in the financial industry and across various sectors, what made you realize that, hey, I really want to do this, and this is something that can really be awesome?
I think it was, first of all, I got to give kudos to my partner and the co-founder who I mentioned earlier, Kevin Day. He is someone who's educated me a lot about blockchain. Again, I often joke that I have a grade 3 level education in it, but because so few people don't understand it at all, I can sound smart. But I think the great value is we've got Kevin who truly understands this. He's educated me. We work well as a team. We have a number of employees now. But I think what's unique about Ocean Falls, and you'll hear me say this when I talk to other people, is, and Kevin's taught me this, blockchain is going to be transformative in the world from a technology point of perspective, from a technology perspective. And but what's so important is to solve real problems. A few years ago, we saw many companies just add the name blockchain to themselves, and it did work for a short period of time. There are many problems and issues and efficiencies or inefficiencies that blockchain can solve. And we as a company are trying to focus on business verticals that really will solve those.
And what are some of those verticals? Because, as AI has advanced, for example, a lot of people don't even realize where AI is in their lives. So to, talk about a technology and its advancement, how will people begin to experience blockchain more in their lives?
Yeah. I think, look, blockchain will disintermediate many businesses. And if you look at some of the most profound, where the most profound impact will be, I think we don't know where it will be over the long term. I often joke it's much like when we dialed up the internet 25 years ago, no one knew it was going to turn into an Uber Eats app on your phone. That said, if you look at industries, financial services, we focus to a certain extent and we see opportunities in insurance, very much so. That's like such a paper-driven agency business. Healthcare can be another one, real estate. There could be so many different areas, the financial services sector, aside from banking. So I think it's going to touch a number of different areas. And we can get into specifics, but if you just think about the opportunity to have a ledger and really just remove some of the agency costs, the inefficiencies can be profound, or the efficiencies found can be profound.
Yeah, really imagine the impact on government there as well. Talk about paper-driven industries.
And it's interesting, governments are moving towards that. We've had engagements briefly, not at a high level, even with the government of Canada. It's a process. And again, just if you look at where blockchain is right now, it's in the ecosystem. Everybody understands there is value there. Everyone's just still trying to determine exactly how it fits in their own space. And for many companies, is how do you generate revenue from it? I think that's something it's just going to take a little time, but it's happening very quickly.
Are there, of any of those that you just mentioned, are there any specific applications that are most impactful so far, as in for the recent years, perhaps that someone would be able to identify and understand for how it impacts them?
I'm trying to think if really that where we're seeing it. I think we're seeing it, again, we're starting behind the scenes, really in the financial services sector, but I don't think it's really hit Main Street yet. For that fact, because you're hearing the banking companies, all the large companies are out there are looking at it. But from a certain perspective, I guess we've seen it in entertainment, I would say, and socialization, where that is people buying land in the metaverse. That's a blockchain application, NFTs. And again, I truly believe it's not for me. I don't have a digital hockey card or digital memorabilia yet, but I truly believe, for example, that NFTs are the democratization of much of the artwork, sports memorabilia that we can talk about, because it will allow, through smart contracts, and that's really where a lot of the blockchain will come, through smart contracts, it's going to allow artists, musicians, athletes to continually generate revenue streams, whereas before, if an athlete had one card, a rookie card, Tom Brady, it was then sold, he or she, in this case, Tom, would never be allowed to participate in the growth down the road. We've seen it in these peripheral areas, and I think that's just the first stage. And we know it went through a parabolic rise, and it's come off recently. But that's like any new technology. Things take time. It goes through a period of FOMO, and then restructuring, and then back again.
Absolutely. And I'm really glad you mentioned that, because that's what popped up in my mind. As someone, and anybody can relate to this, they see the advancement or advent of a new technologies get created, such as cryptocurrencies, for example. There becomes that exact FOMO phase, the extreme inflations of value, and then it crashes, as all things do when they experience meteoric rises. And then people say, oh, it's a scam, and they run away from it. And then 10 years down the road, the brand new technologies that impact their lives that they're always in progress, and they're actually fueled by those sorts of things are really, if you can zoom out, that's the more impactful long-term view of how technology comes about and accelerates. So definitely a moment of perspective for anybody as looking previous, but also future, as
Right.
people are looking at new technologies coming out. So thank you for sharing that there. Now, what role and involvement specifically are you and OFBC looking to play in that future? You mentioned a couple of the things, but are there any things other than that that are, hey, this is exactly what we're going to do, this is how we're going to provide the solution, and other elements of that nature?
So we've got an aspect of vertical on from an insurance in the insurance space. Kevin, his background is actually as an insurance broker 20 years ago. So that's an area. But we've acquired some different applications in the blockchain space. We think that there's lots of areas in insurance that we can focus on in the near term. But our objective over time is either to acquire, to build out applications in a number of different areas. But currently our focus is, in the insurance space.
Great. And now OFBC, from my previous research here, does have what I would call a very strong moat or competitive advantage in the origin of where you truly are geographically and everything like that. So share a little bit about that story as well.
Yeah, sure. So Ocean Falls, exactly, is a small town, approximately 3.5 hours north of Vancouver, inland, but only accessible by air or water. There's no roads that get there. It's very interesting that 45, 50 years ago, it was a town that had almost 5,000 inhabitants. The pulp and paper mill industry in British Columbia was prevalent. It actually has tremendous history just in that town. I love to tell the story. It had the first indoor swimming pool in Canada on the West Coast. It had a 500-person hotel. And then when the pulp and paper mill industry died, unfortunately today it's gone. There's approximately 30 to 50 inhabitants who live there year round. But the location itself, again, it's hydroelectric power. So again, it's renewable energy. That's very much a focus of what we believe in. And as a result, it's a wonderful little location, and our hope is to build on that. We will continue to build our digital assets database center and grow from there.
Excellent. And you mentioned the climate element, the environmental positivity of that sort of setup that you have there. And you're also part of the Crypto Climate Accord. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, so it's a wonderful organization. It's modeled after the Paris Accord. We work with other signatories and other companies that are in it really to try to accelerate the green solutions in the blockchain world. And again, it's to help decarbonize crypto and blockchain. We are Bitcoin miners, and it's unfortunate that the term mining came with crypto because it adds the negative context of it. But this goes a little bit back to what we talked about earlier, Jacob, where new technologies, when they come up, are not always 100% efficient. And again, but we do know that blockchain will create efficiencies. And whether it's proof of work over time becomes proof of stake, whether there's a factor in it, but even with proof of work, which if you're familiar with, which is what we do with Bitcoin mining, there's the opportunities over time to really make it green by using things like immersion cooling, recycling of heat. So that's the wonderful and exciting part, and what I get really excited about when you talk about, again, the acceleration of green solutions. Yeah, with the CCA and that group, there's lots of opportunities, and that's where blockchain and the technology will continue to evolve, revolutionize, and change. And as I said, although yes, there are issues and challenges with, again, the power that it's used, I don't think it's always a fair story when you look at, as opposed to build big buildings, and we know the carbon that's being used for other aspects in our wealth creation in the world.
And to dive deeper on that and the connection between making the earth more green, but then also the advancement of technology, I think with blockchain, it's been very interesting because exactly for the reason that you're saying, the energy consumption is high, but the price efficiency point is if you can have a setup like you do. So it really starts to merge the interest. And that's what I believe is the most important thing when it comes to, let's say, over the next 30, 45 years, making it, hey, we are now net zero as a community, as a society. What other insight can you provide to us there, having actually negotiated or been part of some of those deals and are utilizing those deals that are mutually beneficial for all positive outcomes?
I think the only insight I would give you is, again, it doesn't move forward in a linear line. And I think that's been our experience in it. I think that if you embrace technology and if you embrace the advancements, as I said, there'll be stepping stones where things get better, not so much worse, but we've got to find ways around it. As I said, when we look at what's going on today and the enormous consumption, and there's a substantial consumption of power that's being used, but it's really been quite interesting as now it is becoming a far greener business. And as I said, when I look at areas that it's going to touch, we've explored the recycling of heat and creating, again, hydroponic plants, because there's an opportunity. Ocean Falls, where we are, is, again, it's very wet. There's a lot of opportunity, but to create opportunity, whether it's growing tomatoes in Canada, we can grow cannabis, all sorts of things that can be done through these. I don't know if that gives you an answer, but I think really what I'm seeing is by embracing that technology, you see all the opportunities that can spin out from it. And again, it's not perfect, but I think we continue to get better at it.
Excellent. Now you're on the verge of going public. Is that correct for OFBC?
Correct. Yeah, we're in the next month or two. Yeah, we're there.
Excellent. So from the standpoint of an investor, why would I be excited about the opportunity and want to get involved there?
Well, first of all, maybe I'll let the market tell anybody why, but I think what's interesting is we're a small company. Again, our market cap at our most previous raise is only about 25 to 30 million Canadian and thereabouts. So let's take 80% of that for US dollars. But we're a small, diversified company, again, with a core business in the digital asset mining space, again, renewable energy, which is very important. But as I mentioned earlier, we've got a number of blockchain applications that we're going to be launching that have real blue sky and solve real problems. I think that's what's cool about us. And again, for a small company on the exchange that we're going, the Canadian Securities Exchange is one of the Canadian exchanges, is we will actually be in the minority in that we actually have revenues. Many small companies of this valuation are research and development, and they're growing, they're spending. We will require more capital as we grow, but we are actually generating real revenue. If I look at those things, I think we've got a solid foundation. There's real revenue being generated. And with some of these things, there really is that potential opportunity for unicorn.
Got it. And you said that last part again. Sorry, I think I missed that one.
Sorry, yeah, I said we've got real revenues, a real core business that generates cash flow, and we've got some unique applications that, with a little luck, could be worth what a unicorn is.
Great, very exciting stuff. And what is that after, of course, going public is a major goal? What is the number one thing that you're pursuing in terms of, is it becoming a unicorn, or is there some sort of impact goal or things associated that's really uniting the team as that next stake in the ground that you're going for?
I think we've got an amazing team in the sense that, again, they want to leave their mark and really create something of value. So I would say that's it. If you ask me what my goals are after we go public, and that means the job's only half done, we want to generate value for our investors. So obviously that means a price appreciation, but that price appreciation will only come over the long term if we're generating revenue and creating unique real products. So that's something. But we want to be a company, again, create a company that individuals, the employees, myself, that we can be proud of. And that goes back to some of our stances earlier. We want to be as environmentally correct as possible. We want to be inclusive. And again, this goes back again to some of my values. We want to respect people and the environment and all our stakeholders. And I think that I look at our employees, I look at the people that I work with, my partner, Kevin Day, they've got a real strong moral compass, and they keep me on the straight and narrow. I'm the evil capitalist, but I joke that we want to do well, but we also want to do good.
Got it. Now, what is the best thing that everyone, listeners or investors included, do to support you and your mission, your company?
So I think a couple things. I don't want to sound from a high level. I think keep learning about blockchain. It really is going to change your life. Specifically with us, people can follow us at oceanfalls.com. We're also on Twitter, on Telegram. So please follow us. And yeah, selfishly, keep an eye out if you want to get on our mailing list. Happy to share that with you. Once we're public, buy the stock.
Perfect. And we'll make sure to share the mailing list, your link to that down in the description. Anything else you'd like to share as a takeaway for our guests or for our listeners?
No, nothing for listening. I want to thank you for having me. Thank all of them for listening. And yeah, if they do want to access me, again, they can email me as well directly at oded@oceanfalls.com.
Perfect. Thank you, Oded. It's been a pleasure to have you, and we'll see you on the next interview.